G'day, ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Strap yourselves in, because this is going to be one strange game. This is the J29D, the Tunan, or the barrel in English, and it's awesome. It really is, and I can't wait for the entire Swedish plane treat. It's going to be good. It's going to be fun, and I think it's going to bring something new to the table that we haven't quite seen before. A lot of people, when they initially released the Tunan, had a little bit of an inkling that the plane was not as great as people cracked it up to be. A lot of people who said it would be on the par, or roughly on par with the MiG-15 bis, were quite surprised when they went and flew the plane themselves and found that it seemed a little bit more underwhelming than they originally thought. Now, I'd like to suggest a couple of things. I think the Tunan is decent, and I'll show you exactly why in this gameplay. I think it is a fairly decent plane for 8.7. It's not overpowered. It's certainly not, in any shape or way or form, bad. But I do definitely think it is one of those well-balanced premiums that you just don't kind of see too often with the KA-50. But, it's good. So, what am I going to do in this match? Well, what I normally do in any plane, to be honest, on this map, is I tend to take a little bit of an easier approach. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the far side of that mountain you can see just off to the left, just a wee bit there. I'm going to go around it. And that's mainly because nowadays in jets, which is quite sad to me, to be honest, most of the teams like to climb. So what they're going to do is climb somewhere between that mountain and the ocean. And so what I'm going to do is try and collect the stragglers. That's something that I've always done in jets, and that's something that I always recommend. I do not recommend climbing at all unless you're in a plane that is extremely slow, like the Venom or the Panther. Maybe climb in jets at 7.0, maybe at 7.7, but certainly not when you're doing 1,000 kilometers per hour, and especially when your best performance is on the deck. These planes tend to perform extremely well at low altitudes, and a lot of them reach their rip speed, so there is no point gaining altitude and doing boom and zoom maneuvers. There is point, however, in gaining separation, and what I like to do is I like to get a little bit of separation in this plane from the battlefield and from the climb stream. Doing a little bit of rushing occasionally is good, but I think this plane excels a little bit more when it's only facing one or two people, not when it's going head-on with everything, which is a tactic that I do regularly employ. I tend to run in at the sea level, and then what people will do is they'll try and, go after me. And because I have so much speed built up, I'll tend to accelerate away from them, but I'm not going to do that this game. I can see there's an Oregon right behind me, and I've managed to sneak up, and this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm catching the stragglers. You can see he's put himself into a left-hand turn, and I'm going to try and engage, but I'm not going to fire the shot because the rudder locks up at this sort of speed. So, what am I going to do? I'm actually going to do a sort of vertical maneuver here. I'm going to put myself into vertical and then roll over and then continue straight. I'm not going to drop my altitude because I may need to dive all of a sudden, and there also might be other things at a little bit of a higher altitude. So now that I actually have the altitude over my opponents, I can then put that into a dive, and it gives me again the separation. You don't climb in jets for altitude, you climb for separation. And this LA-15 doesn't really want separation, and in fact, he wants a stream of 30mm cannons. He wants the big cannons. These cannons are perhaps better in most ways than the Aidens. The only difference is they don't have the ammunition that other cannons otherwise would have. It has 100 rounds per gun, and most of the others have 150, but the rate of fire, and I believe the muzzle velocity as well, is a lot nicer. Not only that, but I believe that the accuracy of the guns is a little bit higher on top of that because of the longer barrel on the cannon. Now that is something that I can get behind. It's a gun, or weapon system rather, that requires you to use your noggin a little bit. Shoot when you think you're going to get the kill rather than when you are speculating. Now, speaking of speculating, this Seahawk is looking at not really doing much, so I'm going to shoot him in the tail, and the F-89B has decided to fly in front of my guns as well. So, what does it give me? Hits. Of course it does. Why wouldn't it? But that's okay, because the F-89B is quite slow. He's turned a couple of times, and I'm going to put myself into a vertical, and then roll over, because I hear a Swift. Now, the Swift is extremely fast and has fantastic energy retention, but the Tunan can and will beat it in this situation. I'm able to outrun even MiG-15s and even sometimes Sabres if I have the speed and the energy. You put it into a vertical, into a gentle climb, maybe 5 or 10 degrees maximum, and you can outrun things like F-86s and MiG-15s. MiG-17s you probably will outrun as well. But what I won't really outrun is the crumbling numbers on my team. It's awful. My team is dead. What am I going to do, you might think? Well, it's quite simple. I'm going to put myself into a vertical here. Try and bait the Swift into coming vertical with me, because I know that I will win those fights. I'm dodging a couple of 8-inch shots there, and I'm going to roll up this time. Instead of rolling over, which is what the Swift is likely anticipating, I'm going to roll up, put some flaps on, and then when he figures that he's going to lose that fight, he puts it into a dive, and I'm going to follow. Now, the Tunan is actually quite similar to the MiG-15 BIS in one way. It accelerates really, really well and has fantastic energy retention. In the other ways, top speed perhaps, it comes close, but not many others. It has really good guns, without any of a doubt, although they're a lot easier to use than the MiG-15s, although you still can't spray, and, you can see me here potatoing the shots. I could have got myself a kill here, and it makes me sad, because I'm almost out of ammunition, and I realize that. But that's just one of the things that you have to keep an eye on in the Tunan. You have to keep an eye on your ammo count. And you can see the Swift is now going into a couple of turn fights, and he's rolling the wings, and then he rips. So unlucky ducky for him. But unlucky ducky for me, because I have a Kai 200 on my ass. I'm going to belt the hell out of there, because the Kai 200 will outturn me. It has got way better low speed handling. And that is something that the Tunan quite struggles with. It's not a plane that you can just sort of low-speed dogfight in. You have to be at mid-speed, and you have to play for energy rather than turning or speed. It is a challenge, but if you master this challenge, it's one of the most rewarding jets that I've ever played, to be honest. That and the Sea Jesus come quite close. I just love jets that absolutely just hemorrhage energy retention. Well, not hemorrhage, but maybe if you picture a big muscly guy, that's how I like my energy retention, big and muscly. Well, that sounds a little bit too gay for me, but regardless, I digress. We're going into a situation now where it's getting a little bit hairy for me. The Kai 200 has to land because he doesn't have much fuel left. And this 163 is in a little bit of a dogfight with me. Now, I could go vertical, and that's what I might do, but it's given the 163 a window to go and take a little cheeky dive for the Ki 200. Now, I find this quite reprehensible. I really don't like when people do this, and I think it's a little bit scummy, but if you're going to do it, then maybe if you're desperate, sure. But this guy, I didn't feel was desperate. He has a numbers advantage. The Ki 200, and I believe a Canberra. So I don't know. I feel like this guy crossed the line a little bit. So he's going to dive, and he's going to stay low, and then the Canberra flashes up on my screen. I think, you know what? Screw it. Let's go for a last minute head on, and I push it, and I take him out straight away. Those M55 cannons. There's something really special about them. They're just so high firing, and they have such a high density of fire that it's just really, really rewarding, and it's really nice because you can place your shots, unlike other planes where you have to sort of spray and hope or hose your enemy down with 50 cals. Now, in this situation here, I don't want to present to the 163 that I'm going back to base, so I'm going to wait to break contact, and then I'm going to go and land, because that means that the 163 will probably not realize that I'm RTB, and he might also be heading back to base to rearm and refuel himself, because the 163 only does have 6 minutes of fuel. So I have myself 4 kills. And maybe 5 if you count the Swift. But I'm starting to struggle here. I am left up against 2 guys. And I don't really know what I should be doing. Maybe I do. Because the 163 can do quite a lot of damage to me, to be honest. And at the same time, the Key 200 might also be up. So am I going to get strafed? Am I going to get, smashed off the runway? Or am I going to come through? Well, we'll let myself rearm and repair for a bit. And we can actually discuss certain things about the Tunan. Now, I know that the Tunan actually did see service. And it was a ground attacker in that role. It was a UN peacekeeping Tunan, I guess. I guess that's what you can call it. But this plane was never shot down in combat, and that's probably because it never saw planes. It was doing ground attack missions. And to be honest, the J-29D, which is the variant that we have in game, is indeed equipped with ground attack capabilities. It gets 24 sort of like HVAR type rockets. They're pretty crappy, but they are good for taking out pillboxes and stuff in RB. They're not terribly accurate though, and that's something that I kind of find disappointing. They also fire one at a time, so you can make up for it. I suppose you can make up for it, but it's kind of weird. It's something a little bit tough to get used to. The plane itself also gets a couple of 500mm Pen rockets, so they'll be good in higher tier. But I think the winner are the 4, Tiny Ivans, but they're Swedish. So we need to come up with a name for Tiny Ivans that are Swedish. I have no idea. I don't know many Swedish names. I know some that are probably like also German and Dutch and Norwegian and all that. Danish. I genuinely don't know. So let's come up with a name in the comments section, and maybe the best one will be the actual name that the community decides to use. That might be cool. Another thing I'd like to bring up is that the J-29D doesn't come with any other air-to-air capabilities apart from the cannons. And the rockets if you're feeling like Whip Energy, of course. But the J-29F gets an improved engine and it gets air-to-air missiles. So I'm thinking this is going to be the 8.7. And honestly, I think the J-29D is a worthy 8.7. I think if we get the J-29F at 8.7 as well, it'll probably be a decent 8.7, if not one of the better ones. But personally, I'm really excited to see the Swedish tree. In fact, all of the Swedish tanks and all the Swedish planes that I know of, I'm quite excited for. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting tree. And again, over the summer, I like to grind. I like to, play a bit of War Thunder while I'm not working. And it's just nice. It's just nice to have some stuff to grind. So having the Swedish air tree, I'll probably end up completing it in like 1 or 2 days. But the Tunan is a really, really good vehicle to grind with. And I've actually been grinding Silver Lions in the meantime. Because I don't have many left. Because I've been buying plenty of vehicles. Regardless, what I'm going to do now in the battle, returning to the battle, there are 2 planes left. There's a 163 and a Key 200. Now I'm going to climb a little bit. I don't normally climb, but what I'm going to do is just have a little look. I get that bird's eye perspective on the airfield, and I think maybe I can see something. Maybe I start to turn away, and then I realize, yep, I do see one of them. I don't know if it's the Key 200. I don't know if it's the 163. And it looks like it is the Key 200. And yes, there we go. So what I'm going to do, switch off the afterburner, and I'm going to go for a cheeky head-on. Because these guys decided to, disrespect the airfield strafing thing. And you know what? Because they are, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm sick of people basically not showing any respect. So you know what? I'm not going to show respect to them. I think that's fair, and I think that's quite reasonable. Key 200 goes into a turn, and I manage to shoot him down. I make sure I quickly pull away, and I make sure I keep off the afterburner while I'm in a dive, because this thing compresses like crazy. It's actually not that bad against Sabres, but you have to realize that this plane compresses at high speed. So when you get to that high speed, you have to be really wary that you're not going to crash into the ground, and I have done so multiple times. It is difficult to get used to, but if you think of it like a Swift, actually, that's a really good comparison. It is like a Swift F7 that has slightly better guns and a bit better roll rate. It doesn't quite get the flapperinos, and it doesn't quite get the turning ability of the Swift, but it's sort of like a side grade, to be honest. I think the Swift F7 and the Tanan actually go hand in hand quite well. I think it's really cool, actually. Now that I think about it, it's nice. We actually have jets that are equivalent to each other. I would say the MiG-15 BIS is more or less equivalent as well, and I would say that the A5 Sabre is equivalent on top of that. In the Italian tree and the German tree, of course, you have the G91R, the BIS, the G91 Pre, which I don't really think is equivalent. I think it's a little bit worse. I think the 91 Pre should be 8.3, and I've voiced that opinion multiple times. But we are onto the last member of the enemy team, the guy who actually did the strafing. So, you know what? No respect to him. I'm going to wait for him to take off and then get him as he's slow. I don't want to go too close to that airfield AA because I don't really trust it. It's a little bit RNG, and I'm going to keep my speed, keep my afterburner, and I'm going to go for a little bit of altitude. Just wait for him to get rolling, and then I'm going to turn around. Hopefully put him in a cheeky head-on, maybe energy trap him, and then get the win. Finally carrying the team that just... Oh my lord. We'll have a look at the scoreboard when I'm done, but you'll see. You'll just see how bad they were. Anyway, I'm going to go for a quick cheeky head-on with the 163. I can see him already firing, so I quickly evade, and I managed to score a fire. That's game. That is game. 6 kills in the Tanan. Granted, it is a most down tier. It was a full down tier because I was facing F-89Bs. It's still a competent plane in an up tier. Actually, in a full up tier, it's fairly competent. You won't be getting as many kills, though. You certainly won't be. I normally average about 2 or 3 kills a game. And as you can see there, this time, my team averaged 3 kills between them. And I had 6. So... some teams are backbreaking. And you know what? I'm happy to carry them. Because when you look at the rewards, I think 160,000 Silver Lions is... that's nothing to laugh at, to be honest. That's crazy. It's good. It's a good Silver Lion grinder. It's a challenging plane. And it is, in my opinion, 100% worth buying. Especially if you like the Swedish planes. And if you like, or if you want to grind them. Obviously, I probably wouldn't buy it right now. But maybe when the Swedish planes come out, you can buy this one. You can also buy the PM1, which I have asked Gaijin for, but they have told me that they're having some problems with it. And so I think I'll be getting that one a little bit later for you guys to, to show you off. And maybe you'd want to buy that one instead. But I quite like the Tanan. I think it is well balanced. I think it is competent. I think it is challenging. And that, for me, ticks all of the boxes for what I want in a premium. And in fact, it also is unique, which is also kind of cool for a premium. But regardless, that's all for today. Remember, all the links are in the description below. Merch, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, whatever. Anyway, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.